Hey everyone, hello. So, today's video dives into a topic that has both haunted and fascinated humanity for centuries: death. But instead of viewing death as something dark or final, we're going to explore a radically different perspective, one offered by the great philosopher and mystic Manly P. Hall. Hall taught that death is not the end of life, but the continuation of it, a transformation, a release, and perhaps even a return home. In modern society, death is often seen as a full stop, a complete erasure of identity and consciousness. But Hall argued that this belief comes from what he called a materialistic worldview, the idea that we are nothing more than our physical bodies. According to him, this is the root of our fear. Because if you believe you are the body, then of course the loss of the body feels like a total annihilation. But Hall invites us to shift our perspective. He asks, what if the body is not who you are, but simply something you use? One of Hall's central teaching is the continuity of consciousness. He believed that consciousness, the true essence of who we are, does not die. It simply changes states. Just as you move from waking to dreaming to deep sleep, death in this sense is another transition in awareness. A movement from the physical plane into a more subtle dimension of existence. Hall often described this as the soul withdrawing from the physical body, much like a person stepping out of a worn-out garment. The body returns to the earth, but the consciousness continues its journey. Hall didn't just believe in survival after death, he believed in return. He described reincarnation as a cycle of necessity, not a punishment, but a process, a curriculum of the soul. Each lifetime, according to Hall, is like a chapter in a much larger story, a chance to learn, to evolve, to resolve unfinished experiences, and to refine character. If something remains incomplete, whether it's emotional, moral, or spiritual, the soul returns to continue its work. This perspective reframes life itself. It suggests that nothing is wasted, no experience is meaningless. Everything contributes to the growth of the soul. Another key idea in Hall's teachings is the distinction between what he calls the mortal and the immortal. The physical body is temporary, subject to time, decay, and limitation. But the deeper self, the soul or consciousness, is enduring. Death, then, is not destruction, it is separation, a release of the soul from the physical vehicle. Hall often compared this to a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. From the outside, it may look like an ending, but from within, it is a transformation. One of the most fascinating aspects of Hall's philosophy is his view on the afterlife. He didn't describe it as a fixed location, like heaven or hell in a literal sense. Instead, he taught that the afterlife is a state of consciousness, a subjective experience shaped by the individual's inner world. In other words, what you carry with you, your beliefs, emotions, level of awareness, continues after death. So, rather than going somewhere, you awaken into a state that reflects who you've become. This idea places responsibility back on the individual. It suggests that spiritual development here and now directly shapes the experiences beyond. So now, let's bring this into something deeply human: grief. Hall did not dismiss grief. He understood its emotional reality. But he believed that a deeper understanding of life's continuity could transform how we experience loss. If consciousness continues, if the soul evolves, then those we love are not truly gone. They have simply transitioned into another phase of existence. He encouraged people to see death not as a permanent separation, but as a temporary distance in a much longer journey. This perspective doesn't eliminate grief, but it can soften it. It can replace despair with reverence and fear with understanding. According to Hall, fear of death is ultimately fear of the unknown and fear of losing identity. But when you begin to identify not with the body, but with awareness itself, something shifts. You begin to see life as a continuous flow. Forms change, experiences come and go, but the observer, the witnessing consciousness remains. And in recognizing that, fear begins to dissolve. To deepen this understanding, here are a few additional ideas Hall emphasized. Life and death are complementary, not opposites. One gives meaning to the other. The purpose of life is growth, not mere survival. Death is a part of that process. Spiritual ignorance fuels fear, while knowledge brings peace. Self-awareness is preparation. The more conscious you become in life, the smoother the transition in death. He also drew heavily on ancient traditions. Egyptian, Greek, and Eastern philosophies suggest that this understanding of death as transition is not new, but ancient wisdom we've long forgotten. So, perhaps death is not something to fear, but something to understand. It's not an ending, but a doorway, a passage from one state of being into another. And if Manly P. Hall is right, then life is far more continuous, far more meaningful than we've ever been taught to believe. Well, that's it for today's video. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who may need a new perspective on life and death. So, until next time, stay aware, stay curious, and remember, you are more than the body. All right, everyone, take care. Peace.